Hey everyone! Last week during Unreal Fest Online, we released two new Blender add-ons that greatly streamlined the workflow between Blender and Unreal Engine. The Send to Unreal add-on improves the export pipeline, while UE to Rigify allows you to import any characters from Unreal Engine and have access to Rigify animation controls. This allows you to more easily animate quad and bipedal characters. Visit our GitHub page to access the add-ons, documentation, and quick start videos. Real-time production is revolutionizing film and television pipelines across the globe. Whether it's virtual production techniques that empower filmmakers to explore ever more ambitious ideas, or final frame animations rendered in real time for episodic TV and commercials, the way we create linear media content is changing. To help these storytellers extend their skill sets and embrace this brave new world, Epic Games is launching the Unreal Fellowship, a 30-day intensive online workshop during which experienced industry professionals can learn Unreal Engine, master state-of-the-art virtual production tools, and develop the skills to build teams proficient in the emerging field of real-time production. Apply now through July 27th. When the Royal Horticultural Society wanted to see its 30 million Bridgewater garden project ahead of delivery, it called upon the University of Salford's ThinkLab to create an immersive VR experience in Twinmotion. Learn more about the project and how Twinmotion can help propel the initial planning process on the Unreal Engine blog. When car giant Honda wanted to promote its new Civic hatchback, it partnered with the creators of the iconic anime series Evangelion Studio Kara to develop a string of distinctive commercials. Graphinica started full-scale production with almost no experience of Unreal Engine and delivered the project in less than 3 months. The Japanese animation studio is an expert in creating hybrid animations that make use of digital technology, mixing CG animation, compositing, and hand drawing. Learn more about how Unreal Engine's fast, real-time workflows were leveraged to hit their deadlines. It's time to share the top weekly karma earners on AnswerHub. Many thanks to Clockwork Ocean, Every Nun, Evil Cleric, Napajadam, Turer, Shadow River, Mighty Enigma, Andy C. Briggs, PFTQ, and Marcy. Our first community spotlight this week is On Code, a dystopian story-driven first-person shooter. Written and constructed almost entirely by one person, the game takes the player through a journey that explores conflicting ideologies within an open-world cyberpunk atmosphere. Go check it out on Steam. This real-time Niagara simulation from Epic's senior technical artist Jonathan Lindquist is popping. It's using position-based dynamics and static volume textures to recreate the character's mesh, dynamically evaluated constraints, and simulation stages. Follow him on Twitter and check out the high-quality video on Vimeo. I Am Dead is a charming puzzle adventure game from the creators of Hohokum and Wilmot's Warehouse about exploring the afterlife. Maurice Lupton and the ghost of his dog Sparky must uncover ancient mysteries and save the place they call home. To help with their mission, Maurice uses his newfound power that allows him to peer inside objects and people to reveal their contents and memories. Published by Annapurna Interactive, the game will be released later this year, so make sure you wishlist it on Steam. Thanks for watching this week's News and Community Spotlight. Hi everyone, and welcome to Inside Unreal, a weekly show where we learn, explore, and celebrate everything Unreal. I'm your host, Victor Broden, and today my guest is none other than Mr. Chance Ivy.
Hey, how's it going? Long time no see. It's great to see some familiar faces here in chat and a bunch of new folks as well.
Yeah, you're I would call you a stream veteran.
Oh, I don't know. Back then we were just trying to figure out, how to do all this stuff and how it works. It seems that you guys have taken it to quite the next level, and I'm just excited to be back. I think it's been like 3 years now, 2 years since I've been on Inside Unreal. So yeah, it's pretty cool. A lot of fun. I'm happy to be here today.
I'm glad you're here. Today we're going to talk about something that is near and dear to your heart, the UGC example plugin, the simple UGC plugin.
That's right. Yeah, so I guess a couple weeks ago, Victor, you helped me with this quite a bit, but we had released an abstraction of the RoboRecall modding tech into a plugin and an automation tool script. So it's a little something that I had been kind of working on after hours for some time, just slowly starting to move some of the technology out. I'll go kind of through some of our focus, some context as to what we did, where you should look to find some of this technology, and we'll be walking through a number of different things you can do with the project today. It's a little different than I'm used to for like a demo, because I wasn't really sure which computer I would be streaming from today, so I went through over the last couple days and I made some videos of me walking through the entire presentation. So you're going to see me drop the presentation for a second, open a video, kind of scrub through it and pause, and then talk about things. So if you've got questions about those things, drop them in chat as normal. We'll try to get to what we can in the end here. I guess without further ado, we can just dive right in.
Yeah, let's do it.
Victor, you tell me when my thing's on screen.
It's on screen.
It's on screen. Great. All right. So again, context in today's focus. If you're not familiar, we released Robo Recall back in 2017 for the Oculus platform. It had a mod kit that launched on the launcher. It supported player, enemy, and gun mods, so you could override those things inside the main game, as well as loading all new content as maps. So you could basically build a new maps to play Robo Recall on, or you could even do like some full conversion stuff there as well. It supported all different kinds of content. Most of the runtime hooks were in actor replacement and in map discovery. The editor and the source are available on the Epic Games launcher, so you can just go in there and find Robo Recall mod kit, download it, take a look at all we did there too. It's built on an older version of Unreal. I think we shipped on 4.15, if I believe so, but that's back in the day when we had engine releases, much more regularly, and so there's probably a bit of 14, bit of 13, bit of 15, and maybe even some future 16 stuff in there. So if you're trying to look at that as a resource for now, you're going to find some really great things conceptually, and some of the ways we built both the game and some of the modding capabilities. But a lot of that code doesn't necessarily translate straight up to your project now. So hence the next step here is the simple UGC plugin automation tool scripts. So this is a plugin that has a runtime, and it has a editor module inside of it that helps with UGC content discovery, actor override functionality, and utilities for packaging and creation, just like we had in Robo Recall. It's 425.1 compatible. So if you have 425, you'll want to upgrade to 425.1 to use it. It'll also, we'll have it in the next version of the engine as well too.
Which went live today.
Yes, exactly. I saw. And then also there's a really simple UGC example project that uses this technology in a way that, that shows like the entire modding end-to-end architecture, how individual pieces work. And so it's like really a bare bones example. We're going to walk through the project here. I'm actually going to run the executable, and you're going to see the riveting gameplay that is there. Victor's seen this. He's really excited to see it again. Anyway, let's just show basic mod support for UE4. And the project itself is wholly available on GitHub as well, along with some light documentation. And you can go on there, do pull requests if you want to. You can fork it. You can flag some issues for me to take a look at if you come across anything. But surface area isn't super broad, so there's not a ton of stuff in there. But the point is I wanted to get something out that was really simple, and we'll get to that in just a second. So a lot of people will ask me since the Robo Recall days, like, "Hey, I want to add mod support," or they don't ask. I say, "I want to add mod support to my game," and my first question back to them is like, what does that mean to you, right? Like, it can go as simple as like overriding a texture, right? Like replacing the skins for your weapons to something else, all the way to a full conversion. And so kind of thinking through this, there's really three major different pillars that I guess not pillars, but approaches that I like to think through here. And one of them is I want to play the main game like as it was designed and as it was built. But I want to override some of the base functionality. And so this would be something like, you'd see in Skyrim mods where like all the dragons or butterflies or whatnot, those kinds of things. Or maybe there's a goop gun that has alternative fire. Or maybe you've overridden the enemies so they can be, turned into being on your team to fight other people just in certain areas. Maybe there's something that some mechanism lets you do that. And then there's ways to like augment based systems. So this would be like, say you have a system that has like a merchant, right? And you're a sword builder and you want to build 1,000 swords that work with this game. And you want those to be available for with some currency, right? Like inside that main game. So people would still be playing that core game, but now they have new stuff, systems that scale up and down based on content that was created kind of out of band from that original project, right? Or like same thing like hats, right? Like the whole game plays the same, but maybe there's a bunch of community built hats that are passed around, and now they can go on your characters, and it doesn't really change a lot of gameplay. It's just augmenting the experience that's there. And then all the way over to like adding new content. Like, so say you had like, a squad-based shooter game, and now you wanted to do one where it's a little bit less perfectly balanced. You wanted to have like, protect the president mode, where there's, somebody with a completely different model that is obviously the president. He's made of glass, or she's made of glass. And then you have the other people there that are like the Secret Service agents that are really good, right? And that would probably use some of the same core systems as the main game, but it's all brand new content. It's completely different ways to play. Or say you have like a dungeon crawler game, right? Like, and it's really great. It's set in like, like a high fantasy world, but you want to take those people to space, right? And so you might have space themed maps with different enemies and whatnot. And this goes all the way to like full conversion mods. So kind of abstractly, what you'd be looking at here, and the way that I think about this, the way that we thought about it for Robo Recall was like, at an abstract level, mods are just really bundles of content for a game that are created and packaged and distributed separately from that game, right? There can be integrations into main systems, or you can pop out of those main systems and main frameworks into a mod to play it separately. But when you start thinking about it this way, it kind of separates some of the technology pieces from the design implementation. And one of those is very content specific and game specific, like as to what your game might need. And the other one is more about like, okay, how do I structure my content to get it into those right places? So yeah. I'm sure you're familiar with mod tools. I've had a couple people reach out beforehand since we launched the project and say, hey, I've never even looked at modding. I'm not really sure what goes into it at all. So this might be a little bit obvious to some folks, but I wanted to call it out here. So some of the tools you would probably use here is like your editor internally, right? This might be your version of 425, or you've got some, fork of GitHub that you've kind of built yourself. A lot of studios will have that. It's like for instance, we had the Robo Recall editor, right? Or like the Fortnite editor. And that's the thing that we use to build that game. That thing outputs like an executable package that is playable, right? It's distributable and it can be played. From that editor can be created a mod editor, which may or may not have all the same content in it. It may have extra or less functionality because it's for a different user. Instead of this being the entire same thing that you would build your game with, the intent here is to build these little packs of content that can be consumed by that main game and loaded up separately, right? For Robo Recall, we released like the entire editor plus the 2 buttons you've seen there for creating and packaging. And we removed like things like the maps, right? So people couldn't play the whole game, but they had everything they needed inside the entire architecture to be able to go through and test out a mod. So they could build a mod, play a simple sample level, like say they're making a new gun, they could play it against a new enemy, or they play it against an old enemy, or play a new enemy with the old guns, and vice versa, right? They can make their own maps and play them there. The rest of the infrastructure was there. Some people, we have some mod kits on the launcher right now that have full-on, like they basically are, their custom mod kit is really vanilla UE with their project in it. And they're maintaining it separately than vanilla UE since we release, out of band from them. But, they release everything inside of there. So it's almost like the old UT model where you can get at pretty much any of our code, anything that's, that comes with the editor. It's all of our Unreal scripts, all of our content, everything that's in there, and you can kind of recreate your own mods there. And then there are some other folks too that have built ways to limit a lot of the content, ship only the minimal amount of stuff that needs to go in there, and then have some other tools that can kind of fill in the gaps to protect some of that IP. A lot of those processes are going to be very custom to your need and what you're comfortable with releasing. And there are ways too that some folks have actually been able to take content that they want to be able to ship for modders to use, but they've cooked it and then had the editor load the cooked version so it can't be easily, distributed outside of the editor. So for this project itself, I wanted to kind of let you guys know and gals know what the focus was for me whenever I was taking this approach. It's called the simple UGC plugin for a reason. It's not bare bones. Is kind of is hard to say, is maybe too harsh to say for the plugin itself, but we really want to just take the mod support code out of RoboRecall and pluginize it as a start and kind of show all the individual moving pieces and then kind of scale up from there too. We know that you're going to have very different modding needs based on where you're publishing or what kind of mods you want in your game. And so it'd be a little presumptuous of us to make a lot of those decisions for you. And we know that specifically for this, as we've worked with licensees that are doing this, there's really not one size fits all solution for any of it. So, so the first thing is can we pull that code out of RoboRecall so you don't have to download RoboRecall, do some research there and then deduce what you need and then try to port that code up into UE4 25, right? And then do it in a way too that doesn't require engine code, right? So can I add mod support using that plugin without changing the engine? And there's some trade-offs without changing the engine here, but this is definitely enough to get moving. There's a lot more sophistication you can get into the lower level you go, as I'm sure everyone's aware here. But using the UGC example as like a template to work from and the simple UGC plugin here, you do have to have a source project because we need to recompile the automation tool for some custom build scripts that you'll want to modify just to get exactly what you want. But you don't have to change the Unreal Engine code itself. And then too, like just think, okay, well, can I take like a mostly empty game and then sideload an entirely separate game? One thing that was like interesting to me is like, well, what if I just shipped like the starter content map and then there's like just a menu that lets me load up an entire kart racing game, and then from that kart racing game I can load up an entire first-person shooter game. Is that possible? Can I do that? And then in form to share, in the form that we follow to share with you guys as much as we can. I wanted to make this as simple as possible, so there's really nothing in there that you're fighting, trying to figure out how it works. And this goes to content too. Like you'll see, there's not a whole lot of content in this project at all. It's mostly just some editor code and a few little things that help you understand the relationships between them, which made it hard to actually to promote this thing too, because it's a bunch of editor pieces, a bunch of tech, but it's cool. It's really good stuff. So as I'm sure you've seen before in the blog posts, you can get the project on GitHub. I've probably said that a couple times today too. It's github.com/epicgames/UGC example. Of course, you have to be logged in to see that. Inside this repo, you'll get the whole project itself. You'll get the simple UGC plugin. You can see it kind of there in plugin/simple UGC. The automation tool scripts are in there as well. There's actually a packaged game that we include also, just so you can just run, extract that exe, extract the zip, and then run the exe, and then use this project just compiled to build mods for it, which we'll walk through here in a little bit. And then there's some quick start documentation on there as well. It just should cover kind of at a high level each individual piece. It walks you through kind of what we're going to do today at a very like handheld way. I won't be reading the documentation today because as much as that sounds like a whole lot of fun for you and for me, I figure it might be better for you to do that without me. And then I'll even go further in depth on taking some of this stuff out and working it into your own project to add. All right, so let's actually take a look. As mentioned, I have videos, which is going to be an interesting experience here, but we'll see how it goes. So have patience with me. So this is the actual editor itself. Victor, can you see this okay?
Yeah, looks good.
Great. Okay, good. So I'm going to go ahead and run it, but you'll see I have just this, if I can get this to go away here. There's a UGC example content folder here. And then I've added starter content here just as part of the demonstration, just to show you something here in a little bit, but that's less relevant for right now. There's just the UGC example content kind of in our sample form. This can be moved into your project if you want to. It won't move the plugin, but it'll get this content over there for you. Now, it's got a handful of blueprints, some simple UI just so we can show you how to discover and use mods. There's two maps. There's main menu map, and then there's example map. Main menu map, you'll see pops up here. If I hit play in editor, it's just loading up one of these UI widgets that's got a list of the UGC packages that it found. And by the way, just so we're clear, I will probably interchange UGC and mod back and forth here. If you don't know, UGC stands for user-generated content. It's not standard in the engine anywhere yet. I'd love to standardize on that. And it's called separately other places too. So you'll hear me say one or the other, but I kind of mean the same thing. And then there's a jump out to open example map, right? So this is just going to open that other map that you have here. And that's kind of it. That's kind of the whole project, right? We have this spawned. cube actor and this spawn sphere actor, right? And they're there on their game. So that's fun. And like I said, I have a packaged version of it. Now this is in the UGC example project root. You can go down and see it in releases. There's UGC example v1 and then package game.exe. So I've copied that here to my desktop just for just ease of use, convenience. And pop it open here and I can run the game, and guess what? It's just as exciting. I have nothing and I can open my example map. And yep, there it is. Applause, please. Send the Game of the Year awards my direction. So yep, that's it. You'll see it's just the same experience, one to the other. Now let's go ahead and take a look at making a new mod for that packaged game. As mentioned, we've got a couple of editor widgets that are up here that are very similar to what you would see in Robo Recall. I moved them on the toolbar a little bit, but they kind of do the same thing here. One of them is for creating a new constant-only plugin that is going to drop into the mods directory under your project. And we can go ahead and do that here. So just click on it. Now this is extending and apologies for some of the weirdness with Windows. I had to record this at 720p just in case there's bad compression. So there's going to be some weirdness with that too. I apologize. But what this is going to do is this is very similar to the plugin browser that you've seen before. It actually follows the I think in some classes the plugin wizard definition, which uses that and overrides a number of those different settings. So you'll see in here too, I'll highlight it in a second, but it's going into where my project is in the UGC example and then into mods. And so I'm giving my mod a name. I think I just call it my cool mod because all I make are cool mods. Give it a name, give it my author description, and then it will go ahead and create it. Hooray. All right, and you'll see over here too, my cool mod now has its own top level directory in the sidebar for the content browser. And it takes me automatically to that content folder, right? So you can see it right there. There's nothing in it right now. Space template is empty. Now let's go ahead and take a look at it if we play an editor, right? So play an editor. There's nothing there. I don't really expect much to happen, but you'll see now I have /mycoolmod as a new section here, right? And it's actually making a new like package path all the way up to the top for anything that's inside of there. It's the same way as if you had content in a plugin. So if you're used to working with things like the asset registry or any kind of game packages, instead of being /game/ directory path to the object, this would be /mycoolmod/ right? So we see that up here. There's nothing in it yet, so there's really not a whole lot we can do. But at least we know that it was created appropriately, and we can actually find it. If you were just to make a /plugin that goes here, or just drop something else into /mods, it wouldn't necessarily show up here. The actual creation button flips a couple settings to make sure that it's discoverable here. Cool. All right, so let me close that out. So now let's actually add something to it. I'm going to go back to the starter content that I added here, and I'm going to move over that minimal default. There it is, minimal_default. We'll copy it down into my cool mods directory. Here we go. Double click. And I'll save it, rename it. And build the lighting. Right. So now we have that new map in there, right? We can close all this down just to keep it straight. And if I pop back into my main menu here and I hit play, go play an editor. So I've reopened the play an editor, or sorry, the main menu map that we load into. And now you can see that I found a map in there, right? If I hit open, it'll pop open. Yep, so there it is. My new level, hit open, and it takes me to, yay, the great chairs. So it's not super surprising, right? Like, you added a new map, you have somebody to look for new maps, it finds new maps in the editor. I wanted to take a look real quick at that mod menu that you saw right there. We won't go too deep into it, but I want to call out why it's kind of neat. Let me go back to where we were. Sorry for the scrubbing. So here, there is this folder inside. Gosh, I wish that was not there. Can I make this smaller? Will that go away? It won't. Perfect. Thanks, Windows. There's a folder in here.
Installed?
What's that?
Do you have VLC installed?
I don't. So right here, inside this UI folder under UGC example content, there's a mod menu widget and a bunch of different like little cell widgets. This folder is also like wholly encapsulated, so you can move this into your project. It's just using some of the functions from the UGC registry, and you can just drop this into your project, kind of like as a quick like debug if you'd like to. Just put it in your first map, add that mod menu to screen, change this out to the place you actually want to go. But that's a good way for you to test mods, even if you haven't really designed what a mod menu would look like, just to make sure that the relationship between old content and new content it works well, and you understand how it's gonna look in the game. All right, so I'm gonna pop down here to packaging and playing new content. So let's actually package up that mod now. I can click this button here on Package UGC, and this drops down a list of those special mod packages that we've created. If you had like 100 in here, you would have them all down there. I'm assuming that a lot of folks will probably have more than one mod at a time, whether trying stuff out or maintaining things for people to play with. I know I did in Robo Recall. This list is always super long. But you can click this, just a single drop-down click, and it's kind of a one-touch package operation. Asks you where to save it. I'm just going to put it on the desktop here. And this will go through and do all the cooking and archiving and everything of all the content that's inside that mod package. It's going to output it as a zip file. You can change that in the code if you'd like, if you need it to be other format, right? But you'll see right here, that's now my desktop, mycoolmod.zip. I'm going to go ahead and pop it open. And then inside my packaged game, if I can get it open, there we go. It's looking for, it's going to auto discover and auto mount anything that's found in this mods directory. So if I take this now and I put this in there, so it's just right there underneath, next to your binaries. My cool mod is now in there. And if you take a look, it's got a U plugin. It's got all the metadata in there. You can actually extend the metadata. So if you wanted a bunch of different information that's saved with this mod that you might want to grab at runtime and use, such as released version or support links and whatnot, you can do all that as well. Content, packs, Windows no editor, and we have a .pack file all the way in there too. All right, don't want to close yet. Yeah, so now I can go back and run the actual game, and you'll see in that same list, in the cooked packaged game, that new mod is showing to be found and available, and I can pop open that map. And now I have brand new content that did not exist inside UGC example game that now does. So that's like our first like map mod, right? Like now I can play the game where the pawn doesn't move and nothing else happens. There's no mechanics, but I can play this new map. Hooray, right? Oh, that's exciting stuff. All right.
Well, it's a core piece, right? Knowing that you can actually implement complete new maps, right?
Yeah.
It's sort of the easiest way to get started, I'd say.
Oh, definitely. And what's interesting about a map too is like you can just put a bunch of junk in a map, and what will happen is that level will build a reference chain of other stuff it needs. So like, and a map can have its own game mode override, right?
Mm-hmm.
So just even this level, I could build like an entire other game right inside that little thing, and then sideload that map, and I would be playing that game. You would just need good mechanisms to get back to your other menu to do something different that you would normally do. But yeah, that was for Robo Recall, that was the first thing we got working, was getting a separate map, and then having the Robo Recall guy, I can move around on it. So then same thing with removing too, right? Like this is a really simple video and I just have it in here. It was supposed to be part of the other one, but it got snipped, so I'm playing it separately. You can come in here and delete this and then run the game. And of course it's gone, which is not surprising. Ta-da! All right, so let's drop that out. So now let's move one step past, here we go. Move one step past maps, and we're going to put a new actor in here as well. If you've done the quick start already, I know some of you probably have. You've probably seen some of the things we're going to show right now, but I'm just going to make a new actor here. We're going to call it our little metal ball, because I'm not a tech artist, but you're going to see some really great material editing work here, I promise. I didn't tag this as, rendering, but I should have. You're going to see it's going to be amazing. So I'm just making this, I'm making a little sphere, make it a little bit smaller, and we're going to simulate physics just so it can actually do something. I'm making new material here too. Metal ball material.
Lesson number 1 in the material editor.
What's that?
This would be lesson number 1 of using the material editor.
Yes. I'm making the greatest material ever. It's like a silver with a little bit of blue. It's pretty metallic and it's just a little bit rough. Anyway. So let's see what we got here. I can't spell metal. There we go. And I'm going to go ahead and put that into my level. Sorry for the random sound you might hear. I had a couple of these things running in the background at the same time. All right, just drop one in there just so we can see our actor doing something. And I'm too close to it. That's no fun. So let's move that ball back a little bit. That's more like it. That looks great. All right, so we can stop playing editor. So yeah, that's fun, right? Well, what if we wanted to make that first sphere that we saw in the first scene actually be this sphere instead? So instead of just having this as a new actor and that separate map like you talked about, it's just this other content piece. We're going to actually take that and override the main sphere inside the game. So let's take a look right there. First up, what we did, and this is very similar. If you walk through the Robo Recall code, this is very similar to that. Very first thing we did is on our sphere actor, we have to tell it that it can be replaced. So this is kind of a mechanism for you to control specific things in your world that you want people to be able to override or not. It's kind of nice to say, hey, the game just falls apart if you turn all these things into whatever, but there's going to be a number of different things. Again, it'll depend on how you design things. You could put this on your base actor and then have everything inherit from it, but what we do here is we add what's called a make replaceable actor component right here. And on that component, there is a field or a property called actor replacement, or it's an actor replacement section called compatible replacement. So what this does is it basically says, hey, I'm a sphere, but I want people to be able to override me, right? And the compatible replacement exists there to make sure that whatever is trying to take its place is compatible with the rest of the code, right? So you might have something, a perfect example would be in Robo Recall, we wanted to override the pistol with, like a goop gun, something like that, right? Something you hold, or a sword, right, even. And the pistol couldn't just be overridden with our metal ball because there are interfaces and stuff that are expecting a pistol and parts of the core game would just fall apart. So we had a superclass called Odin Gun that all of our guns kind of work from, and that was the interface in which we did all of our, function calls, event, subscription, property settings and whatnot. So in that case, this compatible replacement was Odin Gun. So that way, only types of Odin Gun could try to replace this thing. It's kind of a safety thing. And for this is just a regular old actor that doesn't really do anything, so we're just going to say actor. So it's nothing special. So now we've marked this actor as replaceable. I think this video is over and it's just going too far. So there it is. Great. Now we have to tell the metal ball that it's supposed to replace that actor. One thing that, and I'll pause for a second. One of the reasons we did this, as opposed to having some separate manifest that's trying to map these things together, was in VR we wanted to bring everything into like runtime priority order, as opposed to you having to muck with things like an ini file or some other configuration data asset or whatnot. So we wanted you to be able to say, I want to activate this mod, and the classes that are supposed to override know what they're supposed to do, and the classes that are going to be overridden know that it's okay to do that. So you're not having to do a lot of this one-to-one thing. You can just kind of one touch using the menus, just apply overrides, and the two pieces know what they're doing. Anyway, so we'll take a look here into metal ball, and I have a component here that's similar, but it's just called replacement actor. So the other one says, hey, I'm making this replaceable, and this one's saying, hey, I'm making you a replacement. And then there's like this actor classes to replace array in here. And this one's an array. It's not just like a one-to-one mapping, because you might want to say, in Robo Recall, for instance, we had people that wanted to play only pistols. The entire game, every gun is a pistol. That's what you have to deal with it, right? You don't get anything better. You don't get anything different. And so we wanted to say, okay, we'll just make, pistol overrides everything, and just put everything in that list. But for here, we can just drop down here and we can just override our sphere actor, right? And then save this down. Then I think that's the end of the video. Yep, cool. Dun, dun, dun. And now we have one that's supposed to be overriding the other. And there's now two pieces to it. We're going to look at one of them. One of them is, how do I say I want this mod active? And we'll show that in the menu in here a little bit. The other one is, once the mod's active, how do I, without altering engine code, how do I ensure that the appropriate thing gets in the appropriate spot, right? So I added a function called getOverride for class. And in our example map here, we have spawned cube actor and spawn sphere actor. And they're going to spawn in those specific locations, just using the level blueprint for, convenience here. But you'll see, I can get this UGC registry class here, and then I can pass in a class that I'm trying to spawn into it. And if there is an override registered for that cube actor, it will return the other class. But if not, it'll just pass cube actor in. And so you can see the same thing kind of over here with our, I think it's the sphere actor if I go over to it. So now I've made one replaceable and the other one a replacement. I just need my menu now to say, hey, make this override active, and then this function call will return the appropriate class and spawn it. And all this stuff is also in the documentation too, so if you're looking for more information on that, you can. Now, one thing I wanted to call out real quick back here. This is a couple of extra nodes, right? Like anytime you'd want to spawn something, and there's a little bit of extra work to do in that place. In a perfect world, you may even take this further deep into the spawn code, right? As opposed to having this in every blueprint that you want to spawn something, just do this quick check. I believe the checks are pure, so they should be pretty faster. They're all in the C++. But at the same time, you might want to, for performance reasons, again, if you're comfortable working in engine code, do this down in the spawn code as opposed to up here. That way you kind of do it more globally if you'd like. Other side of the coin, though, this is kind of nice, and it was really nice for Robo Recall because it gives you really fine control over the things, again, that you can actually mod in the game. So not only do you have the ability to say, okay, all sphere actors are moddable, but then I could build a world where, like, I have to have a sphere actor over here, or I have to have this enemy here, or I have to have this building, has to be this building that the game falls apart for some reason. You can just say, okay, override those, but not this one. Like, this one has to ignore overrides, so you don't do that. A good compromise between the two would probably be working into the spawn actor code and have a checkbox, that you can just turn on, turn off to say, hey, allow overrides or not. But again, a lot of that would require a lot of engine code. And that was outside of the scope of this, that we didn't want to have everybody here having to go through and make significant changes to some of the core functional pieces of tech here. Okay, so let's get to the end of this, and then one more here too that we want to take a look at is the pawn itself. So since you don't spawn your pawn anywhere, you kind of have to work this a little bit differently. And I've opened up my game mode here. Game mode kind of picks your default pawn and it tells it what to do. You can override the function, get default pawn class for controller. It's already available as an override to blueprints. I would drop it down over here, but I've already added it so it doesn't show up in the list. But if you're not familiar how to do overrides, you go over to your functions here. There's a little drop down that says overrides. You see right there. Yeah. And so you click that and what's that?
We've done a live stream on that as well.
Oh, great. Perfect. Perfect. And then so in here, I just do the same kind of thing. The get default pawn class for character spits out a U object. So U class. So I have to cast it in actor class, make sure it's an actor class. And then I'll do a quick look up and then return. Hooray. And now on the first thing, for spawned actors in the world, not the pawn, some of you may be asking, what about things that are placed in the world? And those are a little bit different. There's a couple of ways to approach that. And I worked a couple of different methods in here, but I couldn't get something that was, again, really nice without changing engine code. So first and foremost, I would encourage you to spawn when you can. If they have like thousands of things, amortize those over time. The fastest way to do, the appropriate way to do actor replacement for spawned actors actor replacement for placed actors in a map would be to do that like in the level loading code. So when it goes through to construct itself, it would need to rebuild everything, and it would build the appropriate thing the first time. What we had to do for Robo Recall was everything spawned in Robo Recall, all of the enemies, the weapons, anything that we wanted to have modding spawned except for the actual boss. And the boss had to be placed in the scene because something was strange with timing when cinematics came online to start showing the boss. I couldn't get the rotations right if I were spawning him in. And so what you can do is, for those specific cases, you can do a post-load lookup where it's kind of look up into the game instance in the sky and understand if it's supposed to be what it is or not. So I think what that was is like we just said, hey, get my class type and then do a quick lookup. If I'm the wrong type, or if I'm supposed to be overridden, go ahead and spawn the override, assign my properties to it, and then assign anything that's referencing me to that new thing and then destroy myself. And it wasn't too big of a deal. It's more pain than you want to go through, though, for sure. And so I would discourage you from doing that and these kinds of things that will be a little bit more dynamic. And then let's go ahead and test the replacement. So we've now built our metal ball. It has a replacement actor component. We have our sphere actor. It's made replaceable by all other actors. So we pop back into our main menu here. We can go down and hit play. And then now you see, here's what I was talking about in the menu. So I've got actor replacements. This apply button is going to call a function called register override for class. And it patches, and it registers the replacement class. It goes through and it tells the other to, hey, now you're supposed to be me. So if I go ahead and apply that here, I added into the menu the ability to kind of see what overrides are there. That might be a little bit blurry for you, but it says sphere actor C replaced by metal ball C. And then clear override just kind of removes that. Those are just held together in a T map right now, just because it's an association between the two classes. But feel free to extend that if you need more information about it as well, or more information stored with it as well. So yeah, let's do that. And I can hit open map here and you'll see we're taken to the main level and the silver ball is now in that spot instead. It falls to the ground. We're overriding the base game, the exciting, fun UGC example game. All right, so let's actually take a look at that if we were to package it up and go, right? So first off, I'm going to hop back over to my desktop and I'm going to remove my mycoolmod.zip. I just want to call this out just as something that we did here, just so you don't run into it and get frustrated with me, which you can do that too, and then you can give me feedback. I'm happy to hear it. But I left the code in there that if you're trying to package a mod and put it into a directory and it already exists there, it actually fails, and it'll give you a failure reason inside the output log. But basically, you want to delete this or move this or rename this zip before you do it again. What we didn't want is for you to unknowingly be clobbering things if you had multiple versions of something that you're trying out, right? So it just kind of forces you to move that around. You're more than welcome to take that code out too. I won't feel bad. But I'm going to go ahead and delete it here. And then we're going to package up this new one because my cool mod, which is the best mod, has this new replacement ball in it, and it has this map in it too, right? And you'll see too, like this stuff process is pretty quick. We're not doing a ton of stuff here, but if you're doing small scale iteration, you can do a lot really fast, right? So that's already done. And we're going to go ahead and pop it open.
And for clarifications, because that was a little bit blurred there, you click the package UGC button at the top of the toolbar, right?
That's right. That's right. Just went through the same package flow as before. So I can hop into package UGC when it's an editor, back into my mods directory, and then paste that in there. Going a little fast here, but it's things you've already seen. And now I actually have my metal ball inside my core game. So this is again packaged game. And now I've got a new actor that's overriding the actual main game. So now we've actually built and shipped to my desktop a real mod to UGC example game. So yeah, let's just take this one step further too. Like I was just gonna see, like, okay, great. Well, in the push to get an entire another game side loading into the game, right? I was like, what if I just built a whole template as a mod, right? So I'll go through this kind of quick here, but I'm gonna make a new mod package here and let's call it template as mod, and we're gonna try to side load the entire third-person project in to see what we can do with that, right? I'll get that up and running. Third-person project, but load it up as a mod to UGC example game. All right, there it is at the bottom. And then I'm going to add new here. I'm just going to import this content pack for third person. This is kind of a fun. This is a workflow that I wouldn't recommend doing this specifically, just because I can't add the third person template straight into a mod plugin folder. It's going to drop into content, so I'll have to migrate it here in a second. So you can do this if you'd like to. Just know that you can't get it straight into your mod. You've got to do this and then grab geometry, mannequin, third person. But it's still fun to do. Move these on down. I say copy here, or move here, even better. And I know it'll tell you it's cleaning up old assets, loading some things and saving packages, but you'll still want to go, if you do this, go back up to content, fix up redirectors, where it is, there it is, just to make sure everything is referenced appropriately, found appropriately, and you're not going to get any weird errors there. So now I'm going to come down here, now that I've fixed up, just to resave because I'm paranoid. Now I've got the entire template as a mod. So let's just see if I run it, what happens. All right, so now you can see template is mod as another mod package over there. We can pop open the template, and as expected, we've got third-person template working in the game too. So, and now too, so let's take it one step further and say we wanted our third-person character to be the player pawn inside our example game, right? So not only are we just making a new game as like a full conversion separate thing, we also want to override the pawn in the main game too, right? So we're going to pop into our blueprint here. We're going to add a component or replacement component. That's right. And then we just need to make sure that let's find out what our pawn is. So let's just make sure that it's in good shape. So blueprints, gameplay framework, UGC example pawn, and let's make sure it's got a make replaceable actor on it. Great. Then we can go back to where are you? There you go. And then actor class is to replace, so we'll just say UGC example pawn, bingo. Play, save, and then play. All right, so now we have that replacement as well. We can apply that, and oh, you know what? Hooray, he's in the game. So one more thing we want to try here as well is we can mix and match these mods too. you'll see now in the overrides I have sphere actor and UGC example pawn. So we supported this for Robo Recall too. It's basically we want you to be able to turn on as many mods as you want. Doesn't matter where you got them, as long as they're compatible enough, right? Like you've got them structured well where they're trying to override the appropriate things. If there's contention between two things trying to override the same thing, the last one done won because it's just a T map. We did that so we could do kind of like a mod priority list inside Robo Recall where we would apply them from the bottom to the top, so that one of the top took priority. But we can hit open example map here, and now we have we're kind of building a soccer game with a big metal soccer ball, completely out of band. We can go ahead and package that up too. Drop that on the desktop. Everytech, never wait, because redirects can be a nasty mess. Yes, they can. Always fix them up. All right, so I'm going to move my my template as mod into my mods folder here. So now I've got two loaded up. And then pop open UGC example project, and I can let's go ahead and apply all from all sides, and then boom. So now I've got a brand new cooked, packaged, distributable mod for UGC example game. Like I could take this right now, these zips, and mail them to any of you that have this UGC example exe, the project, and you could play these if you wanted to, right? So like if you get some cool mods for the project or whatever, you just mail them to me and I can play them over here as well, as long as you're doing it against the same project version. So that's kind of like an overview of the project. I mean, there's really not a whole lot left to look at there. There's, I think, like I said, I could dig deeper into the UI widgets and stuff, but it's all pretty straightforward as far as those go. I'm going to pop back open this guy here. So we have a few more things to take a look at here. All right. So when it comes to actually adding mod support to your project, based on the work that was done here, there's a quick start in the GitHub repository. Please read it. There's a lot of pages. A lot of it covers what we've already done here, but try not to skim through it too much because there are some important steps as far as what you need to do, and I'll cover some of those things here that are there. But I worked with this the handful of different folks we've had tested internally at Epic to make sure it works well, and I built it from scratch a number of different times. I actually used the doc itself as is to add mod support myself to vehicle game, just as a test to see if it would work, and it's super neat. You'll need to have a source build of 425.1 or higher. This is because you have to rebuild the automation tool, and you can't do that from the binary. But it's as simple as just downloading it from GitHub and just compiling it. You don't need to change anything in source. Your project will need to be a code project, and that's important because whenever you generate project files, the simple UGC automation scripts, the project will be in your project, and the scripts, the batch files that go through and look for those things, they'll find your project if it has modules, and it'll add those things. This is really simple to add. All you have to do is just add an empty C++ class, and voila, you're a C++ project. You don't need to write C++ to do this. It just has to be that model, and so no worries if your blueprints only right now. You need to copy the simple UGC plugin over for the function libraries, components, and editor extensions. You'll have to take a look at the UGC-based game instance for the UGC registry object class. We'll take a look at that here in a minute too. You'll want to set up some sort of runtime hooks to integrate mod content into your game. So what we showed today were the runtime hooks of actor replacement. I just put this little shunt in there that allows us to do a quick check before we do something else. But if you're doing something like expanding like a library of, like I said, swords for a vendor or whatnot, you want to make sure that your game is designed and your systems are designed to take those new things into consideration. So think about those. Think about how you want mods to be used regularly, and then how you want them to be discovered. The UI menu I have here has some calls into some functions that can get you some of that information. But your needs are not always going to be the same as what we had here. You'll need the simple UGC automation CS project. It's just got one simple script in it right now. It's really bare bones. It's built off of the package Odin plugin script that was for Robo Recall. It's just scaled back dramatically because we're not handling a number of other things that Odin was handling. You'll need the development asset registry, and I'll show you this again too. Just a quick caveat too. All of this is in the quick start guide, but I just wanted to call it out here too. The development asset registry from your packaged game for packaging UGC. So basically, what this is when you release an editor, when someone wants to package a piece of content for the editor, it has to reference the asset registry from the base game to complete the actual cook and package. So it knows kind of everything that's there, and it can come together, and the two can work well together. I'll show you how to do that in a minute. And then seriously though, I can't recommend enough go through the quick start document. And even if you feel like you're pretty savvy with working with some of this stuff, some of you are probably way better than me at a lot of this, which I think is great. So if you are, go nuts. But I do recommend going through and walking through the UGC example project as well. The walkthrough that we kind of did today. Doing that will help you understand where things are, as opposed to just watching me watch videos and click around and talk over a screen. It's really healthy. I go back through it too when I get stuck. It's a good resource. So looking at these specifically here, the Simple UGC plugin, you can see this is a screenshot of the GitHub. It's under the project /plugin/Simple UGC. You send that to the same spot for your project. Shouldn't be anything special there. Now, UGC base game instance. This spawns and creates our UGC registry object. Someone on Twitter rightfully brought up that this could probably better off be a subsystem in UE. And one of the reasons we didn't do this, like Mike Fricker and I were talking about that, but one of the reasons that I didn't move it over into a subsystem and I left it here was because this is exactly how Robo Recall works right now, and Robo didn't have that feature at the time. And I wanted, at first at least, for people to be able to draw the parallels between the two if they want to see something that is bare bones and then something that is a lot more robust. They at least have some of the same places to look for some of the same code. That may change over to be a subsystem in the future, but in general, this is inside project settings, maps and modes, game instance. If you have a custom game instance, you can easily subclass it to UGC base game instance. All of that's different in there is the mod registry. It shouldn't be any big deal. The blueprint library that gets the mod registry is just pulling it from the game instance. So if you're savvy in code, you can change that as well too, however you'd like it to be. Let's see here, runtime hooks, as mentioned on the right here, because I put these in order. We have how you actually tell things to be registered, and on the left we have, okay, whenever we're trying to actually use one thing, how do we get at the other? Again, this is going to really depend on what you want to do. This is for fun, simple actor replacement. Like in vehicle game, for instance, using just this stuff here, I was able to build vehicle games that had multiple cars, that all had rocket launchers, that had life, that you could destroy, right? That's really fun. I built that in an afternoon. It was really great, a lot of fun. So you can get a lot of mileage out of this, but it's not going to meet every single use case that you have. So just think about that and how you'd want to do it. The important part here is finding that big new bundle of content, using the asset registry or some of the functions that we provide to get the content you need, and then find the appropriate ways to inject them into the systems that you want to be extended, augmented, replaced, whatever. The Simple UGC automation project. So this has just got the package Simple UGC plugin script in here. You'll probably want to look at, this and expand it over time. There's probably a lot more you want to do with actually packaging a plugin. Maybe there's something at the end of this when it's finished. Do a callback to server to send it somewhere, to mail it or whatnot, to name it differently, to serialize it differently potentially. It's totally up to you, but this is all there. You'll need to move that over. So right now, this is also under the project, and it's under build scripts. Move that into your project, build scripts. And then if you follow the guide on the quick start, whenever you generate project files for your UE4 project, it will grab these scripts, add them to the automation tool project, and you can just right click and say build, and then you're done. And then the development asset registry. This is something that you don't copy from us. So don't copy this one out from our project, because the one that we have is the development asset registry for UGC example game. Yours would be from your project, right? And this would go into whenever you build your project, you can build the game.target, build the game itself in Visual Studio, or you can do like a full package, which will do that for you either way. What that'll do is that'll build a saved cooked Windows node editor to your project and give you this asset registry. After that, you'll copy the metadata in the asset registry folders from there to your project / releases, which is a new folder that you'll make, / named release / Windows No Editor. Now, the release name here is for UGC example game, and then even in some of our build scripts, those two things they're important, and they have to match. You'll read in the quick start guide that I hard coded them specifically for UGC example game. You'll want to change those for your own project, and ideally those are driven by something that comes out of an ini file or from your build system, right? Your build system makes these changes, and then it generates this releases project for you and moves these things over there. We left it as it was for Robo Recall because we didn't want to be too presumptive of your setup, but open to change that in the future as we find how people are using this, and what is probably the best use case overall that we can support. Putting that into an ini probably is the appropriate call, and then just updating the ini every time you up your version. But nothing we provide out of the box would generate the releases folder for you on your end. So that would probably be something that you would work into your build system or do by hand, like I've been doing. And then seriously, again, just a reminder, please read the quick start guide. There's a lot of good information in there. And it being on GitHub as well, if you find an issue, not like I'm having a problem with doing something, but like some inaccuracy inside this, you can tag me on the forums, and I'll try to get up there and fix it as quickly as I can. But that's the link to it. It's available there too. You can read it on GitHub as long as you're logged in. So let's take a look at a couple further customization things that you might want to do here. And this is outside of the scope of the project, but just kind of to be inspired. And you can reference Robo Recall for a lot of this stuff since we did it there. First and foremost, the icons we put in there were built by our editor team, and they're beautiful and we love them. But they don't represent your game at all. When you're going to build and release a mod editor, what you want people to be able to feel like it's like your mod editor, not just UE, right? Like, as much as we love UE and how it looks and stuff, if you're building like Dragon Game 6, this might be like a create new UGC, and it's got like a dragon that's holding a machete, because dragons don't hold machetes. But those kinds of things, right? Work your branding into there. These icons are located in plugins that will UGC resources, kind of as an expected thing. We have both create and package icons, as well as the icon here for the base template. It's just the U logo. You can replace those too. Speaking of templates, you might want to add some. I didn't add any here since we didn't have any content, and I couldn't really build them in a way that would, again, not be too presumptive of your setup. But if you take a look at Robo Recall, you'll see that we have a bunch of different mod templates that we support, right? So there's like custom pawn, custom this gun, custom that gun, custom empty gun, custom enemies, starting points from all the different enemy types. In that templates folder, they have, I think there's a base template that does the plugin information, and then it also holds a bunch of assets, right? So when you create these, it copies this over into that mods directory. Since it's I think it's plugin wizard definition, you can look at the plugin wizard definition code and see what it like the wizard, the new plugin manager, the new plugin dialog that shows up has a bunch of different templates too, right? So if you want to see how a lot of those are set up, you can look at that code and then just start adding your own as well. But this might be, if you're doing like I said on vehicle game, there might be like a new desert map, new snow map, new motorcycle, new this car, new that car, and have people have jumping off points to at least get moving. And the same thing for splash screen. It's not something that is uncommon for us to do internally, is to change our splash screen for our editor internally, right? But for mod kits as well, we have the editor splash, that's just Unreal Editor for people to load. You'll want to change this out for your modders so it feels also just like your special kit that's built specifically for building content for your game. That is under like the project path engine content splash. And just change that out and it should work. So moving on to functionality for other asset types. You'll see inside the thing is UGC registry.cpp, if you're comfortable working in code, that I added in here. We lean on the asset registry for a lot of things. And what we'll do is we'll pass in one of these UGC packages, and then we'll pass in, kind of an out array of, of classes or maps, or whatever the type is that we care about. So for right now, we're just looking at classes and maps here in this library, but it'll be trivial for you to go in and copy these things over, change the filters, and then instead of a TRA U class, maybe it's like a U material or something, just to get a list of materials back out of the asset registry. The code's boilerplate enough that the only things that are different here would be that return type. So if you're looking at doing, just material replacement on specific things, would be a way you could get all materials in a certain package. And then also too, saving user preferences for mods they have enabled. For Robo Recall, we didn't allow you to do class by class overrides. You could just enable an entire mod or disable an entire mod, right? And like I said, we had the prioritized list of mods. So when I enable one, it adds it to a list, and I can move them up and down. When I hit apply, then it goes through and does all the applications bottom to top. What we wanted when people came back into the game to play after a session, for their mods, the mods that they had chose to be on, to still be on, unless they were, deleted or something. We would, remove them from the list. But you can take a look in here in Odin Blueprint Library. Again, the source is available with Robo Recall Mod Kit from the Epic Games Launcher. You can pull this stuff down specifically from there, and this may be something too we bring into the game to the sample at some point too, because I think this is really, really nice to kind of remember where you are when you play, especially as you might have 100, 200 mods in a project or in a game. But you can take a look here to see how we save player-enabled mods using the UE4's save game system, and then how we load that back, and then use that to repopulate and then reapply all the mods. I think we have a little bit of time for Q&A, right? I can probably shut down here in about maybe 15 or 20 or so I can answer some questions.
20 minutes? All right, let's go, because we got plenty of questions.
Let's do it. Okay, great.
One of the first...
Oh. Yeah, do you want me to just hop on the list, or?
I was going to compile some of them into more generic ones.
Sure.
Just talked about a little bit broader.
Go for it. Go for it.
Some of the discussions in chat that happened throughout the stream was sort of the process of providing this for the end user, right? And a little bit of confusion in regards to which editor will you be providing, and sort of how do you package that up. And so perhaps just talking a little bit about what this will look like. The process there, yeah. Yeah,
for sure. So as you've probably seen, there's a number of different mod kits that are available on the launcher right now. If you want to release your own version of Unreal Engine to your community, it would have to be the way that you release Unreal Engine, redistribute Unreal Engine tools, would be through GitHub or on the launcher. Some people have opted for GitHub because they do a lot of code changes, and they want to do things really quickly, and I'll always have the latest available, and take pull requests from the community as well, like having their project almost end-to-end open, right? GitHub in general is a little bit more cumbersome because, as most of y'all know, large binaries in your project, right, aren't going to really work well there, and so working around that, it can be a little bit of a pain, and in general a poor user experience if someone has to compile like an entire editor. So prepping an editor for release depends on the sophistication of your build system. If you don't have a build system, you would be doing some of these things by hand. But what happens is you reach out to somebody on our team, like either Victor or Amanda, they'll probably get you in touch with me whenever you're ready to release. And then we would start the process of getting the tools set up to be chunked and sent to the launcher. So there's some simple paperwork that just makes sure that your IP is protected. And you're saying that we can release your project there, and then you kind of have a tool that can allow you to just update it and send it out as you have updates to your game.
If we take it back a little bit, obviously pushing,
sure,
something to the launcher, that can be a rather big thing, right? And not every team might be ready to do that immediately. The process of sort of being able to say, perhaps you just want to test this. So say you made a game for a game jam, and just for fun, you wanted, others to be able to mod this game. What would the process for the end user be then?
Yeah, sure. In that sense, if you're working from like a really core vanilla version of UE and you haven't made any engine changes, it's probably not a whole lot different than just giving them the plugin and then having them work through this stuff and then giving them your project, right?
Right. So they need the project, right, of that you were working on, and then.
That's right. They would need to go through the process of getting the plugin compiled, so your project would load because you would be using some functions that they don't have, and then yeah, they would need the build scripts as well, so they could actually package the content for it.
There was another good question on the same topic. Let's see, in regards to publishing this, right? Because as far as I know, you're not able to just share a version of the engine, right? The only sort of legal means to sharing a complete custom version of your engine, the only two I think you mentioned, it's GitHub and the launcher, right? And
That's
so
right. That's right.
you can't just zip your engine up and sort of send it off to someone, unless they're on your team and they're under the same licensing terms, right?
That is correct.
So a good thing to note there, so that we don't start seeing uploaded versions of our engine just flying around on GitHub that isn't connected to the Epic Games organization.
That's right. And coming through the launcher too, that allows you to set up a EULA for your users as well too.
Right.
Right. So you can protect your own IP when it's out there in the wild. Now I know some of you, especially a lot of you in the community that I've worked with, don't really care much about that. You're more about sharing than keeping things to yourself. But yeah, that's one thing. Like we can enforce a EULA click through there as well.
Andre just asked, still confused how this works. How do we protect assets and classes but provide access to create new child classes with exposed parameters?
Yeah, so there's a couple ways to do that. One, you can move the assets that you have into native and then not release your source, right? So there'd be DLLs, so you can build everything from there on down. Another way would be to a lot of different licensees have gone through the process of cooking down specific assets that they don't want people to have access to outside of just the editor itself, and then having those reloaded in the launcher.
Say if you're primarily designing your game in blueprints, would you be able to sort of, if you plan accordingly and make sure you're not referencing your entire game in like the pawn, for example, would it be possible to sort of take a portion of the content that you have in your game and submit that without all the other assets that you might not want to share?
Yeah, definitely. It really depends on what modders need access to, right? So this comes down to like designing out specifically what you want them to use, like to actually build mods from. A lot of times, what I've seen a couple people. I say a lot of times. I've seen a couple people. What they'll do is they don't want you to have access to their game mode or their pawns, but they want you to build up other things that are isolated enough, encapsulated enough that they don't have tendrils into other systems. So they'll just release these things with like the default game mode, right, and their editor, so that none of their game is there, but their blueprints that work specifically and their custom editor, a custom version of the engine allows you to still make some of those things as long as that asset registry still exists.
So a good example of that would be your ball, for example, which is just an actor with some properties. You could simply just ship that actor, and the user will then go through the same process that you did here in the beginning of the stream of downloading the custom version of the engine, installing the plugin, and then actually packaging that out as a mod project or have mod folder.
Yeah, I think that could work. Mm-hmm.
There were some questions if this will ever be included in a launcher build of the engine.
I don't think so, mostly because, well, it really depends. If we can find good ways to wait, sorry, I guess I should ask the question. Are we talking about the project or the plugin?
Because plugin, so working with the plugin.
Yeah. So the plugin on a binary build. If we can find ways to make the automation tool take some of these scripts, like if there's better ways to more abstractly, send the appropriate command. And someone had a really good idea of that inside the forum thread earlier. Then you could do that we could pre-compile it and send it out for versions of the launcher that are binary only. But the big thing is the automation script. And there's a lot of things in that automation script too that people will, like, mod developers will want to make custom for their mod kits. Or sorry, mod kit makers. Moddable game creators will want to make custom for their game. So that's something I looked into before, and that was the big stopgap. Was there's not enough flexibility here outside of writing those scripts in code, and writing those scripts in code does require a rebuild of the automation tool. But we can certainly look into it. It's something I wanted to do that to begin with, and I hit that roadblock, right? So
Well, it's cool that it's available at least. We'll
Yeah.
keep working on that. Um, would Let's see. Is dependency possible with mods? For example, mod B requires mod A to work.
yes, we did this with Robo Recall as well. The way that you'd want to do it, so we don't have any mechanisms in right now in the library to do that. But what you would do is, whenever you bring up a module, you would just have to make it check that the other module is there before it makes itself available. We do this in Robo Recall.
So it's just a manual step in case you require that, right?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure we do that in Robo Recall, but I think that requires code mods.
To be able to sort of check references at runtime, right? Yeah.
That's right. That's right. Also, there's the way that I wrote the UGC packages struct. What it does is it takes a subset of the plugin information and it puts it there, so you would want to present that to your user, right? Like I don't want to put like a bunch of the raw data or the entire set of information from the U plugin inside like a game UI, right? So I made it smaller to where you could just say, hey, here's a name description and then like maybe like a version. You could extend that to actually say requires these other things too, and then put a filter inside your inside the find UGC packages for loop that runs in the code there, and say, hey, this requires those things, so you hold it over here. If we don't find those, we can't enable you.
And for code mods, and especially if you start modifying the plugin, you would just have to distribute that in a similar manner on GitHub.
Yeah, so code mods are an interesting one. This doesn't support code mods out of the box, and that's done on purpose. Robo Recall does. What I was trying to avoid here was the fact that sideloading a DLL into any application comes with severe security risk, and I didn't want to encourage people to build games that were insecure, right? Like, there's a lot you can get without it, but it is totally possible, and we do it in Robo Recall. So I would say if you're going to be getting that deep into modding, definitely look at the Robo Recall code for how we do C++ mods, because it's a little bit more involved, but it is functional. It's just it makes it a little bit more of mods become a little bit more of a liability, right? When you're not really able to secure those well, and I'm not the expert on security on those things too. So I would caution people that are doing that to keep that in mind.
It's a good call out. Which platforms do mods support, and other limitations on certain platforms?
So using this right now, since we lifted it straight off the Robo Recall functionality, or the Robo Recall tech, it's working on Windows. I need to take a look at. I haven't tested it on others yet, but right now that's where we are. There's no reason that a lot of these scripts wouldn't be also applicable on other platforms. I just haven't gone through the process of rebuilding the automation tool to be able to package this on Mac. But I can't imagine, we're not doing anything that's super platform specific here.
Mm-hmm.
It's all for the most part pretty straightforward. It just comes down to package paths and asset discovery.
Let's see, got a few more. How would extending classes such as this work for classes that need database information such as stats? Not entirely sure if they mean remote, so pulling from the web.
I'm sorry, can you say again?
How would extending classes such as this work for classes that need database information such as stats?
I'm not entirely sure that I follow.
I think they might be referring to pulling from the internet, but not entirely sure. We can, if you can clarify that, and then
Yeah, sure. Feel free to drop it in the forums as well.
Yeah, the forum thread. So if you're new here for the streams, welcome. When it comes to, the live streams will always go up on YouTube afterwards. And if you happen to watch this when you're not live and you're like, I can't ask my questions, the forum discussion thread, it's also where we announce all the live streams. That's the place where you go to sort of comment and discuss in terms of the live stream. And I'm sure Chance will be happy to jump on there and help you out in case you have more questions. Now, I said that now. I just promised that you'll be in.
That's all good. I think I can grab like 2 or 3 more.
Okay, that's about how much I've got.
Okay, great.
With regards to the get override for actor class, if my game has a multiplayer mode and a client hasn't downloaded the mod, what will happen?
Probably not great things. So UT solved this problem by ensuring that people before they join the session all have the same mods. The UT code. It's funny. We based some of the Robo Recall tech on the UT code, and we based this on the Robo Recall code. So I would say if you're working through something like that and you want to make sure that those things stay in lockstep, I would reference the UT4 code that's available on GitHub as well.
All right, last one then. On performance, it seems possible to design and develop a game entirely via mods. Yes? Sort of a Gary's mod approach almost. How might performance be affected if your game was practically entirely in the mods folder?
I don't think it's going to cost you any differently, right? Like, as far as performance goes, if you were to build it into the same game, you pay a lot of the loading costs for getting that, like, at startup there, because basically it's extending the asset registry, which is, making all the things available at that time. So once a pack is mounted, the content's available. So I can't imagine that you would see a whole lot different. I haven't really tried to do like an entire game. I plan on it. I did a vehicle game that way, and it seemed to be the same as before. But I'm also running on a machine that vehicle game probably isn't stressing out too much, right? I haven't seen anything differently there. A lot of the things we did for Robo Recall, which is more of a constrained platform, right? Because we had to build to the Oculus spec, which was quite a bit lower, and then it had a whole bunch of stuff into it as well too, right? We did a couple of really big maps and a bunch more enemies, like throwing a whole lot more stuff on screen that were not in the original game. So I think what we had was the VR pawn and some of the game state things were the only, or game mode classes were the only thing that were running the actual. There were only things from Robo Recall that were running in that mode. And the only things we ran into there was just because it was more constrained, was just the too many things on screen at once, or some of the shaders didn't work from the map that we brought in, but those were more platform specific, and we would have had the exact same problems if they were in the main game. And one thing that's interesting too, like whenever you're doing this as play and editor, like it's looking at these content packs as if they exist inside the game and play and editor. So if you're seeing similar performance between one or the other there, I can't imagine you'd see a big difference whenever it's packaged as well.
Yeah, I would probably suggest, if you're thinking of releasing mod support for your game, to probably write up a little bit of documentation that might be tailored to someone who's modding their first game.
Totally.
Just sending them a link to sort of the quick start guide for the plugin itself and the example project, that might be a little bit tough. And you probably want to customize it specifically for your game anyway. And having a little blurb there about, maybe like note about performance, and maybe provide them with some resources. And that's good in general, if you're interested in sort of foster a community that is excited about game development and not necessarily just your game. It could be, a lot of us started by actually modding video games. And having that little piece of documentation could be a nice, or almost required, I would say, specifically for your game, explaining your actors and your base classes and what you got going on in your game.
That's right. Yeah, and you can get it really far with just some of the base stuff that comes with UE, right? Like I think some of the first mods that I ever built were just taking some simple content from UT, moving it around, and then having different spawns and lights and whatnot as well, right? And just using some of the core systems for how UT worked. And I learned a lot just doing that.
And some mod editors are very sort of cut down versions of an editor, right? But this actually allows you to give your community the full potential of Unreal Engine, and they can do pretty much anything they would like to, and also allow them to grow and continue to make awesome stuff.
Now, one thing I wanted to mention too that Victor pointed out when we were first talking through this, there's no reason that you couldn't take some of these same approaches to build DLC for your game.
Right.
So imagine you have a game that's out there and you wanted to add like an entirely new mode to it, but you didn't want to cut a new client build, right? You could just basically hey, I'm just going to go in and make a new package of this thing and then inherit the things you want. Use it wholly as an internal tool, and then package it up and then distribute it out to your community. So it's pretty cool.
It's very cool, actually. When I realized that, I was like, oh.
That's great, right?
Yeah, because it is one of those questions that come up frequently, and it's not easy to do. This allows you to actually do that without the amount of work that is required with the chunk downloader, installer, and yeah, honestly, I don't know those steps by hand.
Yeah, you and me both.
I was gonna go
But
and go ahead.
I was just saying at the same time though, like say you build your game more modularly, and I'd have to test this out to see how it works. But say you build your game all more modularly this way, and you have an issue with one of them, you could just patch that one as opposed to patching your whole game, right?
Yeah.
This is kind of nice, not having to do a whole client build.
All right. With that said, thank you so much, Chance, for coming on.
Yeah, sure. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, doing it. I mean, developing the plugin as well as coming on and talking about it here. I wanted to mention a couple of things before we go offline. If you're interested in meeting other developers around the world working with Unreal Engine, go ahead and check out communities.unrealengine.com. As you might know, almost no in-person meetups are happening around the world, but the groups have taken this into their own hands, and they've started doing virtual meetups on Discord and other various platforms. So go ahead and check that out. Make sure you visit our forums. There's also an unofficial Discord channel called Unreal Slackers, which is a great place to discuss stuff in real time, ask questions, or just chat with like-minded people. We also exist on Facebook. There's a Reddit, who'd have thought? And of course, follow us on Twitter for all news related to Unreal Engine. If you are interested in becoming one of our community spotlights for the week, make sure you update us in one of the channels on the forums, the release channel, work in progress channel. We also browse ArtStation, Twitter, as well as Unreal Slackers. We're still looking for more countdown videos. I have not received any in quite some time. And the countdown video is what we do at the beginning of the stream. It is 30 minutes of development. You fast forward that into 5 minutes, send that raw file to us together with a logo of your game. We will go ahead and composite that, and you might become one of our countdown videos that we sort of rotate through. Make sure you follow us on social media, and next week we are going to have Helia and Jeremiah on, and they're going to be talking about how to use control rig, how to animate using control rig, and they'll be showing off the sample project that is available on the Learn tab of the launcher or Marketplace. It's one or the two. It's either on the Learn tab or the Marketplace. And once again, big up thanks to Chance. Chat, give a big shout out to Chance here for coming on, taking time on his day, having a good time with us, talking about all of this stuff. I think with that said, I hope you all stay safe out there, and we will see you again next week. Bye, everyone.
See y'all.